In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create new projects and save project templates in Reaper. Let's create a new project. If you go to the File menu here, you can select New Project. But before we do that, let's select Reaper Preferences. If you go down here to Project, this decides what happens when you hit New Project in Reaper. The stuff up here is for templates. I'll show you that in a little bit later. Let's start over here where it says Prompt to Save on New Project. If this is not selected, and you hit New Project, it just opens up a new project. Doesn't save it, doesn't say where the files are going to wind up going. So I don't really like leaving it that way. So I'm going to go to the Preferences. I'm going to select Prompt to Save on New Project. So now when you hit New Project, the Save Project dialog opens up. And now you can name it and decide where you're going to put it. I'm going to choose the recording drive. I'm just going to name it Test. Hit Save. Now if I go to the Finder, or the directory, you'll see there's a file called Test in my recording drive. This is where all the files are going to wind up, in this drive. Now the only problem with this is I'll show you if I start doing some recording. You make a new track, insert new track. Let's just do some quick recording. I'll hit Control-R on the PC or Command-R on Mac, just to make some audio files. Now if I go back to the Finder, you'll see all the audio files are spread all over the drive. Makes kind of a messy situation, so I'm not really fond of this. Let's delete all that. So let's go back, let's delete this track. So this time I'm going to do New Project. Again, the Save dialog opens up. But the difference is now, over here it says Create Subdirectory for Project. That's basically a folder. You want to create that, and also copy all media into Project Directory. That's if there's already media already recorded. You want to copy it into the session, so it's a good idea to select that also. Every time you do a new project, it's a good idea to do this. Make sure these are selected. Now we'll call this Test. So instead of making a file, it's going to make a folder. Hit Save. Go back to my Finder. And you see there's a folder there. So now let's do some recording. Instead of inserting the track from this menu, I'm just going to double click over here. Makes a new track. So now we'll do some more recording. Now let's check that out. Now you see it's cleaned up now. It's all in the folder. The only problem is it's now in the directory with the file. Audio files aren't separate. So as you start to get a lot of these, it gets a little messy. So let's change that. Let's go back here. Let's delete this track. And go back to Preferences. And this time, where it says Open Properties on New Project, we're going to select that. Now hit OK. Now we make New Project. The Save dialog opens up again. Again, we're going to choose to make sure it makes a folder. We'll name it Test. But this time it opens the Project Settings dialog. That happened because we set this up. Open Properties on New Project. So when we made the new project, the Project Settings opened up. So now what I want to change is the path to save media files. I want to make a folder for that. Now you can have it anywhere on the drive, anywhere on a different drive if you want. You can browse around and look for it. I'm just going to name it Audio Files. And that's going to create a new folder inside the project folder. Now let's check all the other settings also. Project sample rate, leave it 44.1. You can choose the format, be WAV files, AFF files, FLAC files, MP3s, whatever you want to use. I prefer WAV files. And you can choose the wave depth. I'm going to choose 24-bit. You can choose whatever you like. And you have the project settings also. You can choose the tempo, time signature, the time base for the session, the item mix behavior I'll show you a little bit later, the frame rate and all this stuff. This stuff's not important right now. And you can put notes in there too. This stuff's going to pop up every time you hit New Project, if you have it selected here on the Reaper Project Preferences, which it is. Before I want to close this, check this out. Save as default project settings. If I click this, every new project's going to start off this way. It'll still pop up, but it'll start off with the audio file folder and such. So let's do that. Save as default project settings. So now if I hit New Project, the Save Project dialog pops up again. I'm going to choose to make a folder again. Name it Test. Hit Save. My project settings opened up. And it defaults to the audio file folder I made and all the other stuff I set up. And if I want to, I could change it. But for now, I'm going to stick with the default I had. Hit OK. Now I have a new session. And if I start recording something here, new track, go into record. Again. Check the directory. Here's our project file. There's a folder here called audio files, and all our audio files are now neatly in here. Could view them by kind, so you can see them easier. These are the 3 audio files we just created. So it makes it a little bit neater. You have a folder called audio files, and you have your regular file. Makes it nice and neat. Let's delete this for now. So let's look at the rest of those preferences. Under project loading, this section is devoted to projects that you've already been working on. Look for project media items in project directory. That's telling Reaper to look in the folder that you've created in the project folder for the media items. Then prompt when files are not found. That just tells you when files are missing somewhere. And then show load status. That just shows you all the files being loaded at the time. Next, we have project saving. Save project file references with relative path names. I just leave that on. Just keep some of those file names shorter because they all point to that main folder. Then you have when overriding project file, rename old project. This is on by default and it should stay on. Just means whenever you save your project, automatically makes a backup of the old one. This way you can always go back to an older version. And I usually choose timestamp backup. That just means each one of your backups is timestamped. So you can go back and see what you were doing at 7:30, 7:20, stuff like that. And you can also back up the undos if you want to. This section is for auto backup. Reaper will back up automatically at an interval you set. I usually set it pretty low, like 3 minutes. So every 3 minutes, Reaper will back up my session, even if I don't hit save. Then you have choices for that. Save to project file. It's not recommended to do that because it's going to go over your old file. It's better that it creates a new one. Save the timestamp. Again, it gives you the time that it was saved. I like to choose that. And you can save the timestamp file to an additional directory if you want to put it somewhere else. And then you can browse where to put it. And you can save the undo history somewhere also. And you also have the option of making a whole new folder for all your backups. I'm not going to deal with that right now. So these are your project settings. If you hit OK, and now you make a new project, it's going to make a new project. We'll call it test2 with all those preferences. And again, we want to create a folder for it. We'll call it test2. And I'll make a new session with all the preferences saved the way we want to. Go to my Finder, and you see it's all there. Audio files ready to go. And after every 3 minute interval, a backup file will be created also. So now let's try using Reaper's project templates. And instead of making a new track over here or double clicking, I'm going to use Insert, Multiple Tracks. Let's create a bunch of tracks. Let's make 8 tracks of guitar. What's nice is that Reaper's going to automatically name it for us based on the name here with how many tracks you add. So let's hit OK. And Reaper automatically added 8 guitar tracks, or 8 tracks named guitar. So let's do some stuff to them. Let's select them all. Let's add some color to them. Set selected tracks to random colors. It's just random. Let's choose some other ones. That's a little better. Okay. Now let's pan them different ways. That's good. Pan that this way, this one this way. And that's good. And let's say we like this as a template. Obviously, it's not very complicated, but all the same things apply. Once you get a session to the way you like it, you can save it as a template. So let's say, for instance, we like this template the way it's set up. So we go to File, Project Templates, Save Project as Template. Reaper already has a folder set up for it. You might want to pay attention to where that is on your computer. And we're going to save this as guitar template. Now, we don't have to make a folder because there's no actual audio files in this. If there were, you probably should do that. And if there were audio files in there, putting in the template will add it to your session. But we don't need to do that for this. This template has no media items or audio files in it. So we'll save it without the directory. Save. All you have to do if you want that template opened up, go to New, Project Templates, Guitar Template. It opens up a copy of that project based on the template. And because our preferences are set up, it's going to automatically ask us to save it. So let's go back to where we've been saving it on the recording drive. This time we're going to make sure we do have folders for it because we're going to use this session for recording. Hit save. And because we have the preferences set up to open the project settings, these open up also. It's automatically set to audio files like we had set it before because we saved it as default. And the project settings. And here you can change that stuff. You can change 44.1 to 48 or 96, 88. You can change the project settings, change the tempo to 110, and hit OK. And now a new session is set up right over here based on our template that we had. Now if we go back to our preferences If you remember in project preferences, we skipped over the templates. Here's where you can use them. When creating new projects, use the following project file as a template. So we're going to grab that template we had. I'm going to browse. We've got to remember where that was. And here it is. Double click it, and it shows the path to it. So now if I hit apply or OK, if I open new now instead of project templates, just go to new. This is what a new project looks like, the template we saved. So I'll go back to my recording drive, call it test2, save. And again, we can change the tempo, the audio settings. Again, it defaults to add in that audio files folder. Anything else we set up, hit OK. And now we have a new session based on that template. So it makes for a good starting point. And there's one other preference in there, load template project when starting up. Normally what happens when you open Reaper, it goes back to the last session you worked on. That's where I usually like to leave it. But if for some reason you prefer a new template each time, hit load template project when starting up and not loading last project. If you hit that, it's going to open this file every time and make a new project with it. And again, you could save it and set everything up that way. But I'm not going to do that. I prefer it the old way. So we hit OK, and we're good to go. We have our project template in here, or we could just hit new. And you can save as many as you want. Don't feel shy. Make guitar templates, every template you could possibly make. And as I said, you probably want to have more tracks than this and a more complicated routing system, whatever. But once you set up the way you like to, just go over here, project templates, and save it. And then they're always available. So that's creating new projects and saving project templates in Reaper. I hope you learned something from this tutorial, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.